Welcome to FlashCore, your sharpest source for daily headlines and deep dives. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stay ahead of the curve. On July 24, 2025, North America was rocked by a diplomatic shockwave. The news broke early in the morning, sending ripples of concern across both the United States and Canada. Social media lit up with speculation, and newsrooms scrambled to cover the unfolding story. The Canadian government, led by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, announced the indefinite closure of its land borders to all non-essential U.S. traffic heading to and from Alaska. The announcement came after weeks of mounting tensions, and the decision was delivered with a sense of finality that caught many off guard. The Alaska Highway, a vital link between Alaska and the lower 48, was suddenly off limits. For decades, this route has served as a lifeline for families, businesses, and travelers connecting remote communities and supporting cross-border trade. Communities on both sides of the border were thrown into uncertainty, with urgent questions about trade, travel, and the U.S.-Canada alliance. Local businesses already struggling from recent economic challenges now faced the prospect of losing their main source of customers and supplies. Ottawa's abrupt announcement left little room for negotiation, severing a lifeline relied on by thousands of Alaskans and American travelers. Many families found themselves stranded, unsure of how or when they would be able to reunite with loved ones across the border. The closure impacts everything from Alaskan grocery supplies to the summer tourism industry. Truck shipments of food and essential goods were halted, and the region's popular tourist cabins and motels faced mass cancellations, threatening the livelihoods of many. This move marks a significant escalation in tensions between the two neighbors. Protests erupted at several border crossings, and diplomatic officials exchanged terse statements, each side blaming the other for the breakdown in talks. For many, the open road through British Columbia and the Yukon symbolized a shared history. Now that spirit is in jeopardy. The Alaska Highway, once a symbol of cooperation during World War II, now stands as a stark reminder of how quickly alliances can be tested. The closure is more than a logistical headache. It's a major international incident. News outlets around the world highlighted the story, emphasizing the potential for long-term consequences on trade, security, and the personal lives of thousands. The world is watching as these two close allies face a crisis that's put a literal roadblock between them. Analysts debated the possible outcomes, while citizens on both sides waited anxiously for updates and hoped for a swift resolution. With the U.S. in a politically charged season, Canada's action was bound to provoke a strong reaction. Politicians seized on the issue, making it a central topic in campaign speeches and debates, further fueling public anxiety and uncertainty. The story is no longer just about a closed highway, it's about leadership, national pride, and the high-stakes game of international diplomacy. As leaders on both sides weigh their next moves, the world waits to see whether this crisis will deepen or give way to renewed cooperation and understanding. Canada justified the border closure by citing national sovereignty, emphasizing its fundamental right to determine who enters its territory and under what conditions. The government stressed the importance of enforcing its laws, highlighting that border security is not just a matter of policy, but a core aspect of national identity and self-governance. Officials pointed to a noticeable rise in American travelers disregarding Canadian regulations, ranging from seemingly minor infractions like improper documentation to more serious violations such as smuggling and illegal entry. Canada asserted its right to control its borders, claiming this right was being undermined by repeated incidents and a lack of respect for Canadian law. Environmental protection was another key reason for the closure. The Alaska Highway cuts through some of North America's most pristine wilderness, home to countless species and delicate ecosystems. Ottawa cited illegal dumping, unauthorized off-road vehicle use, and increasing wildlife disturbances as growing threats that could have long-term consequences for the region's natural heritage. The closure was described as a drastic but necessary step to halt environmental damage, giving authorities time to reassess the route's sustainability and develop stronger protections for the land. Public health concerns also played a significant role, as small communities along the highway struggled to handle an influx of travelers, putting pressure on limited medical resources and essential services. Canada argued it had a duty to protect its citizens, especially those living in remote areas where healthcare and emergency response capabilities are already stretched thin. Frustration over U.S. cooperation on cross-border issues was also a factor, with the closure serving as a negotiating tactic to encourage more meaningful dialogue and collaboration. The Alaska Highway has now become a bargaining chip in broader diplomatic discussions, symbolizing the complex balance between national interests, environmental stewardship, and international relations. Alaska felt the impact of Canada's decision immediately. The news spread quickly, leaving many Alaskans anxious and uncertain about what the future would hold. For a state already accustomed to challenges, this new development brought a wave of concern that rippled through every community. The state relies on the Alaska Highway as its main connection to the lower 48. This vital road is more than just a route, it's a lifeline, linking Alaskans to family, friends, and essential resources in the rest of the country. Supply trucks carrying food, medicine, and goods were halted, threatening shortages and higher prices. Shelves in stores began to empty, and residents worried about how long their supplies would last if the situation continued. Alaska's tourism industry, dependent on the highway, faced a wave of cancellations and economic uncertainty. Local businesses, already struggling from seasonal challenges, now faced the prospect of losing an entire year's income. The closure deepened Alaska's sense of isolation. Air and sea travel are costly and impractical for many. For rural residents, these options are often unreliable, making the highway's closure even more devastating. Families are separated, and the freedom of movement is gone, fueling anxiety and frustration. Many are left wondering when they'll see loved ones again, as travel restrictions keep them apart. The highway is also a key military route. Its closure forces reliance on more expensive and vulnerable air and sea corridors. This shift complicates logistics and increases the risk of delays in critical operations. This raises national security concerns and questions about supporting U.S. assets in the Arctic. Military leaders must now rethink strategies to ensure Alaska remains protected and supplied. The closure is not just a travel issue, it's a matter of national interest. Lawmakers and officials are urgently debating solutions, aware that the stakes are higher than ever. Alaska's strategic importance makes the situation even more urgent. Its location is critical for defense, commerce, and energy, amplifying the consequences of this isolation. The state's future now hangs in the balance. Alaskans face an uncertain road ahead, hoping for solutions that will restore their vital connections and secure their place in the nation. President Trump's response was swift and forceful. Speaking from the White House, he condemned Canada's move as a hostile act by a supposed ally. He called it a betrayal, accusing Prime Minister Trudeau of punishing Alaskans unfairly. Trump dismissed Canada's reasons as flimsy excuses for a politically motivated attack. He argued the closure was disproportionate and designed to harm American citizens and businesses. Trump questioned the legality of Canada's decision, hinting at legal action through international bodies. He promised to fight the closure, vowing not to abandon Alaska. "We will find a way, a bigger, better way, a Trump way," he declared. His rhetoric projected strength and set the stage for bold, confrontational proposals. The U.S. would not accept the closure without a fight. President Trump unveiled a two-pronged strategy to counter Canada's blockade. First, he proposed a massive government-supported Freedom Convoy, a sea and air bridge to Alaska, bypassing Canadian territory. Cargo ships and planes would move goods and people between Washington state and Alaska, demonstrating American resolve. Trump called on shipping companies and airlines to join this patriotic effort, promising government support. Second, he threatened economic retaliation, a review of U.S.-Canada trade agreements and potential tariffs on Canadian exports like lumber and aluminum. Trump also floated a reciprocity fee for Canadian commercial traffic entering the U.S. The message was clear: if Canada hurt Alaska, the U.S. would hit back harder. These moves aimed to pressure Ottawa into reversing the closure. The economic consequences would be felt on both sides of the border. The closure and Trump's response ignited strong emotions across the U.S. and Alaska. Anger and anxiety dominated, with residents feeling betrayed by their Canadian neighbors. Many Alaskans see the closure as unfair and isolating. In the lower 48, public opinion is divided but leans towards supporting a tough American response. Social media campaigns like #StandWithAlaska called for solidarity and boycotts of Canadian products. Some business leaders and experts warned that Trump's aggressive stance could backfire, urging diplomacy instead. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce called for caution, highlighting the risks of a trade war. A segment of Americans sympathized with Canada's environmental concerns, suggesting collaboration over confrontation. These voices, though less prominent, called for self-reflection and a nuanced approach. The nation is split between calls for escalation and appeals for calm. In Canada, reactions were mixed. National pride clashed with economic worry. Many Canadians supported the closure as a stand for sovereignty and environmental protection. In Western provinces, business owners feared economic fallout from lost American tourism. Trump's aggressive rhetoric polarized Canadian opinion, with some rallying behind their government and others urging restraint. For some, standing up to U.S. pressure was a point of pride. Others, including political commentators and opposition leaders, called for calm and a return to diplomacy. They warned that a trade war would hurt both nations, given their deep economic ties. The call for serious, private negotiations grew louder as the crisis deepened. The Alaska highway closure has plunged U.S.-Canada relations into crisis. Diplomatic channels are strained, with embassies at the center of a high-stakes standoff. The threat of tariffs could trigger a trade war, disrupting industries and supply chains across North America. Business leaders on both sides are urging a return to negotiation before lasting damage is done. Possible resolutions include mutual concessions, new travel protocols, or joint environmental programs. Mediation by a neutral third party is possible, but unlikely to be quick. The worst-case scenario is a prolonged stalemate, poisoning relations for years. The outcome depends on the political will of both leaders to de-escalate. A joint commission to manage the highway could offer a face-saving solution. The coming weeks will determine if this crisis is a footnote or a turning point in North American cooperation. Canada's sudden closure of the Alaska highway has exposed deep cracks in the U.S.-Canada relationship. This is more than a logistical problem, it's a symbol of a partnership under strain. Canada's concerns over sovereignty and the environment have forced a tough conversation about the world's longest undefended border. Trump's bold response has escalated the dispute into a full-blown diplomatic standoff. The reactions of ordinary citizens, anger, solidarity, anxiety, and calls for peace show the real-world impact of high-level decisions. The U.S.-Canada relationship is being tested as never before. The dispute over the Alaska route will shape the future of this vital alliance. As of July 25, 2025, the highway remains closed and the standoff continues. Reopening the road, literally and figuratively, is now the most urgent challenge facing these two neighbors.